She hadn't even finished turning her head when the pain started. The technician, seated behind the console, didn't notice anything unusual. The computer screen flashed its usual green message, "Beam on." But the sound that followed, low, sharp, and human, cut through the humming room like a blade. The patient, Maureen, was screaming, not from anxiety, not from discomfort, but from something deep, searing, and primal. She was convulsing. Her shoulder arched off the table, her arm flailed toward her chest, her mouth locked open in a silent contortion of agony. The tech rushed in, confused, alarmed, only to find no signs of equipment failure. The machine showed no red lights, no warnings. The software, polished and proud, claimed the treatment had been delivered safely. It hadn't. Maureen lay trembling, the skin on her side already beginning to change. Within hours, it would blister and blacken. In days, her tissue would rot. She died 3 weeks later, alone in a hospital bed, unaware that she had just become the first victim of the Therac-25. This was not a story of sabotage or malice. There were no bombs, no poison, no deliberate crime. It was worse. It was a perfect storm of human error, institutional arrogance, and invisible code. A chain of decisions made by intelligent people who trusted machines more than they should have, and ignored the consequences until it was far too late. The Therac-25 was hailed as a medical marvel when it hit the market in the early 1980s. Sleek, compact, and entirely software-driven, it promised faster radiation therapy, more accurate dosing, and an end to the clunky, analog days of cancer treatment. It boasted dual modes, low-energy X-rays, and powerful electron beams capable of targeting tumors with pinpoint precision. No moving parts to jam, no physical interlocks to maintain. The future had arrived, streamlined, digitized, and deadly. But buried inside that futuristic sheen was a flaw. Not a mechanical one, a logical one. A ghost in the code. It was a programming bug so subtle that no standard test caught it. A race condition, an unintended overlap in computer processes that only occurred when a technician entered a rapid sequence of keystrokes during setup. Do it slowly? The machine behaved. Do it quickly, too quickly, and safety protocols silently failed. The result? A beam of radiation that should have been filtered was fired raw, unshielded, directly into human flesh. Not a soft trickle of therapy, but a high-energy pulse powerful enough to destroy bone and sear spinal cords. It happened in milliseconds. It was invisible, and no one knew it had occurred until the screaming started. The first known incident was Maureen in June 1985. Her death was officially recorded as tissue complications from radiation. No one thought to question the machine. After all, the Therac-25 was perfect. It was software. It didn't fail. Then, in July, it happened again. Ray Cox, a retired Air Force sergeant, walked into the treatment room in Marietta, Georgia, in good spirits. He had minor skin cancer. He joked with the nurse. He lay on the table, the beam activated, and immediately cried out in pain. "I'm burning!" he shouted, thrashing against the restraints. The staff assumed he was anxious, that the treatment had triggered a psychological response. But within days, Ray lost the use of his left arm. A lesion the size of a dinner plate appeared on his back. When surgeons operated, they found the underlying tissue had liquefied. His spine was exposed. Still, the machine logs showed no errors. The manufacturer, Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, dismissed the incident. They blamed hospital error. But Ray knew better. He contacted the Food and Drug Administration. He pushed for answers. Still, it wasn't enough. No one wanted to believe the machine could be at fault. In March 1986, another patient, Verna Daniel, was scheduled for treatment at a hospital in Tyler, Texas. She, too, received a Therac-25 dose. She, too, reported intense pain. Her symptoms followed a familiar pattern: nausea, disorientation, tissue damage. Her brain stem had been partially destroyed. She died weeks later. Her husband began asking questions. When he was told her cancer had progressed rapidly, he asked for her treatment logs. The hospital refused. He kept digging. One physicist, Victor Stello, had also begun piecing the incidents together. He wasn't a whistleblower by nature, but he recognized the pattern. Each case involved the Therac-25. Each had similar symptoms. Each occurred under nearly identical circumstances, an operator rapidly entering data before switching beam modes. The manufacturer still refused to acknowledge the problem. Their engineers were confident in the software, confident in the clean, efficient logic that drove the machine. Mechanical interlocks had been removed on purpose. The software was the safeguard. And yet, people were dying. Stello discovered the root cause, a programming oversight in the assembly language code. It allowed for a variable to be overwritten during a fast sequence of inputs, disabling the safety shutter that blocked high-energy beams. Once overwritten, the machine interpreted the setup as safe and fired. In April, the FDA launched a formal investigation. It was the first time the federal government looked closely at the Therac-25, but AECL continued to deny the software could be responsible. Then came the fifth case. In Yakima, Washington, a man received what should have been a routine dose. He left the clinic dazed and trembling. Within days, his pelvis fractured from internal damage. The pain was so severe he could not stand. His hip bone had been cooked from the inside. It was only after the sixth victim, Paula, a woman who would suffer partial paralysis from a beam that penetrated her spine, that AECL finally admitted fault. The software was pulled. New safety features were installed. But for many, it was too late. The damage had been done. These were not accidents in the conventional sense. They weren't the result of power surges or rusted bolts or cracked wiring. They were born from something far more dangerous: overconfidence in systems we no longer understand, and a refusal to believe that something invisible can still be lethal. Every authority involved, hospitals, manufacturers, regulators, trusted the machine. They trusted the blinking green lights. They trusted the silence of the logs and the neatness of the charts. They trusted a digital interface over the pain of human beings, even when those human beings were dying. And the worst part? These deaths were preventable. The Therac-25 wasn't the first linear accelerator. Its predecessors had bulky mechanical safeties. If the diffuser wasn't in place, the beam didn't fire. If the door was open, the machine didn't operate. But those were seen as old-fashioned. Software was the future, until it failed. After the final case in 1987, AECL settled quietly with the victims' families. No one was prosecuted. No engineer was publicly held accountable. No regulatory overhaul followed. The story faded into textbooks and technical journals. A lesson for students, a warning for programmers. But for the families left behind, it never faded. For them, the Therac-25 was not a case study. It was a coffin. They watched loved ones suffer, not from illness, but from the very machine meant to save them. They sat beside hospital beds as skin peeled away, as organs failed, as bodies decayed from doses no human should have endured. And they were told again and again that nothing had gone wrong. That was the lie they were expected to swallow. But the truth was clear. The Therac-25 was not just a flawed machine. It was the embodiment of a system that valued speed over scrutiny, progress over safety, and appearance over reality. It was a monument to hubris, built on the assumption that technology would always work as intended, and that if something failed, it must have been human error. In the end, that assumption killed 6 people, and it nearly killed more. We live in a world where we trust machines every day. We fly in planes that land themselves. We ride in cars that steer on their own. We enter hospitals and lie down beneath devices we don't understand, believing that someone, somewhere, made sure they're safe. But safety is not automatic. It is earned, checked, verified, and sometimes it is ignored. The story of the Therac-25 isn't just about radiation or programming or hospitals. It's about what happens when systems fail and no one listens. It's about how silence can be deadly, how error messages can lie, and how progress, when left unchecked, can turn promise into pain. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.